Welcome to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten. Hi, I'm Wendy. After I graduated with my master's in wellness management, I started my own company, T2 Coaching, Health, Fitness, and Sport. And I'm Kirsten, an athlete, vegan, life coach, and girl mom, running a business focused on helping others create a life they love. We are here to explore all things wellness to help you become the person you've always wanted to be. So if that's why you're here, open your ears and your mind as we tackle the world of wellness together.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Kirsten. How are you?
I'm great, Wendy. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm at my mother's apartment. So a little bit different background, hopefully no interruptions, and it's quiet.
Right. I know I was looking at our podcast I was watching our podcast from last week, and I was like, oh, it's so weird because I'm used to seeing my background looking like this.
Right.
Because that was the first time I had a totally different background.
Well, when I'm looking at all our little clips that we get from these podcasts to share on social media, primarily Instagram, I'm always like, my hair is different. I'm wearing something different. So it helps me remember based on what I'm wearing, what podcast it was.
That's how I am too. I'm like, oh, I've already posted a clip on this one because we were wearing this outfit and we had this background. So That's funny. So what was your wellness one for the week?
My wellness one had to do with an athlete I coach. I started coaching her a little over a year ago, and she did two races this past weekend. Last year, it was just shortly after I started coaching her. She was battling a pre-existing injury, so she had to do the aqua bike. And this year she got to do the Olympic distance Saturday and the sprint on Sunday. And she had just this major PR in the swim, bike, and run. So obviously put it together.
Right.
It was a PR on both days. And she's 40 years old. And just hearing her race report, she sent me a video race report. I cut it in clips. I posted it on Instagram because it highlighted so many key things that athletes go through in a race. And she got to share that with me. And her being 40, it reminded me back in the day when I was her speed. And I was probably in my 30s. I think I held on to some speed in my 40s, but I was doing a lot of Ironman later. But it got to reflect and reminded me so much of me when I had that intensity and that drive and that speed and that feeling of, we both get this, just trashing your body when you race because you want it that bad,
Right.
and that feeling of exhaustion because you just exerted yourself to the max effort is such a great feeling. And that's a wellness win for me because I'm on her journey and I can experience with her and I can totally relate to what she's going through. And I'm starting to get that back in the sense that, for a while, I had about 2 years of rehab. And before that, I was doing longer events. But this is the next few months. I really want to work on my speed and I want to work on that different type of training exertion that you get from running a 5K that's different that you get from running an Ironman or a half Ironman. And so it's kind of motivated me, it's kind of a little bit of inspiration.
Awesome.
And so I got on my bike the next day. I'm like, all right, I have not been biking. I bike once a week with my friend Anne on Thursdays. And sometimes I get on my trainer once a week. Sometimes I don't, but it's just easy. But it got me to say, okay, I'm going to go crush my body on my bike and start like really training with a purpose and intensity. Because it motivated me to do it. And I will do one triathlon this year. I don't know which one I'm going to do, but it kind of motivated me to say it's time to start training, not just exercise, not just spin, like train with a purpose, because you're going to do a sprint or an Olympic in the next few months. So you might as well be ready for it.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah. So that was my wellness win, had to do with her. Yeah, that's great.
My wellness one was today. I didn't feel like doing anything and I didn't have anything actually scheduled until this, which is really, really rare for me. But I've had a really overwhelming and super busy week since coming back from St. George. So I purposefully didn't plan anything this morning, but was going to go to the gym. And usually Thursdays I bike and swim, like easy bike and then a harder swim. And I woke up very early. I haven't been sleeping very well. And I was like, you know what? I just feel like not going anywhere. And that's just rare. even if I feel like not going anywhere, I really don't ever give myself that option, because then I feel like I get lazy or complacent, or I don't want to create a bad habit. It's one day. But in my mind plays tricks on me, and they're like, it's like, oh, if you don't do anything today, you're not going to do anything tomorrow, and then you're never going to do anything for the rest of your life. So I just allowed myself to, I woke up at like 5, from like 5 to 9, I literally wasted time. I'm saying that in quotes because it's, I just did stuff, like I played my game, and I looked at videos, and I watched a couple like pro athletes race reports from St. George. Like I kind of laid in my bed and snuggled with my dogs and like did nothing productive. And then
and I'm going to interrupt you because I knew you were going to say that. And I think sometimes you really have to reframe that. That seems really productive because it's what you wanted to do. It's relaxing. You had the time to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not like you do that stuff all the time in place of something that is going to enhance your life in a different way.
Right.
I think sometimes that's like an athlete taking a rest day. You do things that you don't normally do, and then sometimes that you're allowing yourself to do that motivates you, and then you're actually more productive in the sense of how we define productivity later that day or the next day.
Right. Well, and that's why I kind of said it with like quotes in mind when I said unproductive, because I 100% agree with you. And typically I don't allow myself to do it. And when I do it, I get kind of annoyed with myself. So I think my wellness win was allowing it and not judging it, or even after an hour, not saying like, oh, you should really get up. And I was like, oh, no, I'm just going to hang out here.
Yeah. Yay.
And then I did, and then for 2 hours, did the dishes, did a load of laundry. I did a few things around the house. I actually today is Thursday. I got home from St. George on Sunday, and I just unpacked. Which is really that's scary. I know. I was scared to open my race bag because I'm like, if my wetsuit is still wet, it's going to be disgusting.
Was it?
So yeah. No, because we actually laid them out that afternoon outside, and it was like almost 100 degrees. They dried really quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, nothing was gross, but I was like, I can't believe this pile of stuff has just been sitting here for 5 days, but I had a busy week. It is what it is. And it's all put away now.
Awesome.
So wellness win. It reminds me of your wellness win from last week about making a decision to maybe not do what you normally do, but it's what you needed in the moment, and being okay with it.
Yeah, for sure.
And dinner was really fun. I don't know if this makes me sound like super narcissistic, but when I was cleaning for those 2 hours, I was listening to our podcast from last week because I didn't have a chance to listen to it, and I like to listen to them. And I'm like, this is so fun listening to our podcast while I'm cleaning the house. Because
I saw you post that on Facebook.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know if that's something that people admit to, because I know a lot of people who do videos and podcasts are like, oh, I can't even listen, or I can't even watch it. But I'm usually listening to somebody else's podcast when I'm cleaning the house. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is so fun. I'm listening to mine and Wendy's podcast.
I was doing that a lot when I was doing a co-host of the Endurance Hour podcast, because it was so much triathlon, so many gold nuggets of information that I would listen and go back and say, wow, I got to capture this part of the podcast and repost it, recreate it, because it's very educational and it's very beneficial for some athletes that I coach. And I found that listening to my voice was just fine.
Yeah.
And
I don't mind my voice.
Yeah. Some people don't like to listen
a lot. I do say a lot, which I don't care. I actually, even though I just said it, I don't notice I say that a lot, but I'm very ADHD. I know that. And when listening to the podcast, it's very evident because so many times I will start a thought or start a sentence and it changes mid-sentence to something completely different. I've noticed that over our 21 podcast episodes.
I notice on other podcasts. I notice when like guest speakers are on other podcasts, because that was something that I learned back when Dave and I would do it. He would point that out to me. And so I'm very aware. Became more aware of myself saying so I'm very more aware of when I hear other people say it.
Right. Well, we have a really cool topic today because whether you are, maybe your kids are just finishing up the school year, maybe you're in between careers, maybe you're going through a relationship change, maybe kids are getting ready to go off to college. That's a huge one. Maybe you just finished a big event. This is kind of what Wendy and I, made us think about this. Or you're like Wendy had her big race a couple weeks ago for the season, and she's not, taking the summer off. So we were talking a lot about transitions, life transitions in general, and how to navigate them, how to sail through smoothly, how to move from one part of your life to another in a way that you're aligning with who you are and connecting it to our overall wellness, making it so that it's in line with where we're going, and just overall we kind of talked about like mental, emotional well-being. So that is what we are going to talk about today. And I would love, Wendy, to hear kind of your ideas about what this means to you, some of your big life transitions, and how you've navigated those.
So I think transitions are just part of life, maybe depending on how your life experience, depending on how old you are, depending on your goals with life, you're going to have some sort of transition. It could be major, it could be minor. And so, just a little tidbit, my business, T2 Coaching, T2 is the second transition in triathlon, where I transition an athlete from the level they're at to the next level. That could be someone going from walking to running, going from a 5K to a 10K, going from a sprint to an Ironman. Wherever they're at is important to start with where they're at and transition them to the next level. And so I think transitions has always been part of my life in some way or another. And I've said that a lot. Life is a transition, that's just how I live. And so I think that the things that come to mind with the transitions in my life have to do with moving from Michigan to Colorado. And that's number one. Number two was starting student teaching in Colorado. I got placed to student teach in Colorado before I moved, and quitting. And so transitioning from, I thought I was going to be a teacher the rest of my life, and I quit student teaching, and I quickly found grad school for exercise and sports science. That was a major transition. And then moving from Colorado to Georgia to live closer to my husband's and my family, who all kind of congregated here. That was a really tough transition for me, because my friends and my business and everything was based in Colorado, and I kind of just picked it up and left it all behind. And then breaking my patella was another major transition in my life. Just not really having ever broken a bone. I've had a couple of minor stress fractures before, but just that major broken bone, and kind of going from 100 miles an hour to negative 100 miles an hour. That's what I felt like during those first 6 weeks of non-weight bearing. and just the emotions that happen in all four of those, major life transitions in my life are just so full of, you're just on an emotional roller coaster for a period of time. And over time, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, that was the big thing that happened to me, especially with my most recent transition of the broken patella. And once I kind of could bear weight on it, 32 weeks later, once I could kind of sort of run on it, that's when I started using that term. Oh my God, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I will be able to run again. I don't know what that means, but I know I'm going to be able to run again, because there was that unknown. And I think that's the main thing with transitions is there's a lot of unknown going on.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's what makes transitions scary because you're going through some sort of change in life and you don't know yet if that's going to end positively or negatively or neutrally, or, you know, you don't know what's next.
Yeah. And I think it's just really important. Like, again, we talk about this all the time, the attitude you have going into it. You know, with my broken patella, I always kept telling myself and everyone else, this is temporary. I'm going to walk again. I'm going to be able to run again. I just don't know what that looks like. But this whole thing is temporary. I'm going to get off the couch because I want to. Not a lot of people would have had that attitude like I did because I'm an athlete and I focused on my why. I want to run again. I want to rehab this thing on my own. Like after my PT was done, I'm like, I'm going to continue this rehab for the rest of my life. And I still do a lot of the movements that I learned because I'm still not 100%. There's always that little every now and then lack of stability that I feel in my right quad. Sometimes I feel the knee pain. I do still have hardware in there. But like when your why is strong enough, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You will get there through the transition. I mean, when I moved to Georgia in 2016, at that time, I was training for my first Boston Marathon. I was preparing for my first triathlon camp in Turkey, and I was moving all in the month of April.
Oh my
mean,
gosh.
those are three major stressors right there. I didn't even know this team in Turkey, you know, so like I never did Boston. So what happened after we made it to Georgia, that was really hard. I remember crying as I was leaving the state of Colorado. You know, I ended up not doing Boston that year. It was just too much because I think I was going to do Boston and then go to Turkey like right away. I'm like,
Right.
that was such a large amount of stress for me physically, financially, and I wanted to get comfortable in my new home. And so that, you know, again, it all worked out. I'm still in Georgia. I'm still married.
Right.
I still went to Boston in 2019. You know, I moved to Georgia in 2016, but I qualified for Boston again and I ended up going in 2019. Everything, again, when you remain positive, everything happens for a reason and it all works out in the end if you want it to.
Right. And something you just said reminded me of something that I think it's very worth mentioning is that all these life transitions, whether we chose them or not, like there's a lot that we choose, like moving or doing a race or getting married. And then there's a lot we don't choose, like maybe a death of a loved one or getting a divorce or changing jobs, not by our choice, but maybe we were laid off or the position was reassigned, or, you know, there's a lot of things we choose and there's a lot of things we don't choose. But either way, we have to work toward doing what's best for us throughout the transition to keep our overall wellness high. So like Wendy just said, she chose, even though, you know, most of us out there know that somebody we know has been trying to qualify for Boston or has been, you know, qualifying for the Boston Marathon is a really big deal. And Wendy backed out of it because for her health, her overall wellness, she needed to let go of something that was stressing her out. So if throughout these transitions, whether we choose them or not, if we continue to take care of ourselves, to listen to our needs, all the things we talk about on every episode, make sure we're getting enough sleep, make sure we're getting enough hydration, make sure we're getting good nutrition, make sure that we are staying true to who we are in the direction that we're going, it's going to make these transitions easier, even if it doesn't feel like at the time.
Yeah, exactly. You know, something I thought about when I'm going through some tough times, you know, setbacks, transition, what helps me through it is my sport. And
Yes.
I tend to say, if I know I'm going to come out of this a better person, if I'm able to maintain that sport and that physical activity, that's something that I can control, because sometimes the setback or the transition is something that I can't control. And I know other people who are athletes who, when they're going through some sort of transition setback, can't continue with their sport. And that is just was profound to me, because I'm like, you still need to continue your training, because you can control, that's something you can control, and that's something that's going to bring you endorphins and change your hormonal state and probably make you happier and more positive. So to give up something like your training or your exercise or your sport, wherever you're at, I think is not the right way to go with it. You're probably going to have to modify your activity level, which is something I know a great deal about. But I just don't think that's something that you have to just say, oh, I can't train for 3 months because I'm about to move, or I'm about to change jobs, or obviously if you're going to have a baby, you're going to have to modify your activity. But again, I think that is what has helped me so much through these stressful transition times, is having my sport to kind of still have control over.
100%. I've had two major transitions in my life. One is getting divorced after being married for 21 years, and one was having a child. Most of you guys know I wasn't planning to have a child, so that was an unexpected, but obviously I chose to go through with it. And so those are my two major transitions in my life. And both of them, the only thing that held me together mentally was continuing my training. And I remember when I qualified for the World Championships in 2017, Ironman was going around and like interviewing people and then featuring a story on someone's, I think they called it like Road to Kona or something. And they did little stories on people. And I wish I would have saved mine, because I would have no idea where to find it. But they did a little story on me. And I was going through my divorce while I was training for my qualifying race. And I was living out of my car while I was training for the race. So I got divorced May 30th. And my Ironman that I qualified was June 7th, I think, whatever that date was. So, I mean, I was like thick into my divorce training, getting ready for this race that I was trying to qualify for Kona doing. And that's what they asked me in the interview. They were like, how'd you make it through this transition? How did you make it through this hard time in your life? And that's exactly what I said, is exactly what you just said, Wendy, is that I focused on what I could control, and what I could control was my training. And I stuck with it. I stuck with my training plan. There was a night that I was up all night. It was right before, or it might've been right after we decided to get divorced, or right before. It was right around the time where it was really fresh. We had a really rough night, and I was supposed to do a 4-hour ride indoors with my friend Ashley. 4-hour ride indoors, followed by, I want to say, a 2-hour treadmill run, or it was 10 mile. I think it was a 10-mile treadmill run. And it was like one of my really hard training days. Like, it was scheduled to be a hard training day, and I hadn't slept at all. I was up all night, and I trying to leave in the morning, and it was hard getting out the door, and I just did it. I was like, you know what? This is part of my training plan. I'm just going to do it. I've had a great training session. I felt so much better afterward. And if I would have skipped it, I literally would have been in bed crying, or it wouldn't have done me any good to skip it. It's not like what we were talking about at the opening of the podcast, when we're choosing to do something different. This wouldn't have been a positive outcome if I skipped that training day. And so just sticking with my training plan, not even really and I didn't overthink it. I didn't even think about it. I'm like, this is what I need to do for me. And I stuck with it. And I did the same thing after I had Cora. I mean, obviously for the first 6 weeks, I did nothing. I was very, very good. I went for walks, but as soon as I could start doing something, even though it was, I don't know how to say it without sounding, it wasn't working with our family dynamic of me going out and doing some training. I chose to do it anyway, even when it ended in a fight, even when it ended with me, um, you know, whatever. That's a whole nother podcast for another day. I still went out and did it because I decided to have my goal be to complete an Ironman before Cora turned 1. Because she turned 1 on June 15th, 2019. And that Boulder Ironman was June 9th, I think it was. And I was like, you know what? This will give me a focus. And it did. And it got me through a very, very hard first year as a new mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a podcast, I don't know what episode, where we talk about self-care and self-love and making sure, you got to take care of yourself, because I really believe that helps you take care of other people as well.
So much. So what are some things that off the top of your head you can think of, if someone's listening, they're going through some really hard transition that maybe they didn't plan, and so it hit them like a ton of bricks? So it's not like, I'm planning on moving, so I'm going to make sure to take care of myself and get all my ducks in a row. Maybe it's something that hit them in the back of the head. They didn't see it coming, and now they're struggling with where to even start with taking care of themselves and getting through this transition.
Right. I mean, I think the two things that come to mind, and again, I'm not the expert, but have a why of whatever, have a why for something. Like you had a why to finish an Ironman before Cora was 1. I had a why of just again, that move to Georgia. Just, you know what, you're in a new location. Things in your life are going to change. It's temporary. Do what you need to do so you can do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, find those things that you do have control over during this tough time for you. There's got to be something that you do have control over. And again, the tough things that I think about could happen to someone is they lose their job, they're fired, they get laid off. I mean, that's a financial issue. That's going to impact your family, not only yourself, but just other people. So, having someone to talk to that's going to be a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just taking deep breaths. I'm not a deep breath person, but we talk about it and it helps some people. But again, finding and maintaining the things you can control.
Yeah. So and those are really, really great. I was thinking, I agree with all those for things that kind of like you're not expecting, like the job loss or, the death of a loved one or a eviction. Like there's a lot of things where all of a sudden your whole world is going to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only so much you can do on your own. So definitely reaching out to your support system. If you don't have a good support system, then therapy, someone outside your support system,
Mm-hmm.
reach out to. And I was also thinking of things you do have control over. Maybe a life transition. Maybe you're getting ready to make one. Maybe you're tired of your job and you've been saving up money to quit and you want to open your own business, or you're ready to go get married, or you're moving into something. And one of the things when I think about transitions, and I said this a little bit about the beginning, is being authentic to yourself. And my word this year for 2025 is alignment, because I'm really trying to focus on wherever I move to in my life. Because I feel like these last few years have been a lot of mini transitions, like mini, like MINI, not like many, but
Mm-hmm.
many mini transitions. So nothing huge, nothing big and overwhelming, like maybe in the past, but so many little transitions. And so I'm just making sure that everything I do is in alignment with who I am in my core, and just staying authentic to that. And I think that when we do that, then our overall wellness is going to be impacted. And the key to well-being is to be who you are. Because if you're trying to please other people, that's a huge, like, people pleaser. If you're a people pleaser, if you're trying to do something because it's the norm, if you're trying to do something because you think you should, but it doesn't feel right for you, it's going to make your transition much, much harder. So even if it's something like Wendy was talking about, a loss of a job or something unexpected, you can make it easier by reacting the way you want to react. By, like Wendy just said, she's not a deep breath person. So if she felt like everyone thinks she should be taking deep breaths during this hard time, and she's like, fine, I'll just take deep breaths because that's what everybody wants. Everyone tells me I need to breathe. It's not what she does. It's not who she is. So it's not going to benefit her. But if she goes out and does a running streak and everyone's like, oh, Wendy, she should be taking deep breaths, but instead she's off running. But that's more in alignment with who she is. So her overall well-being is going to be enhanced. Whereas if she was trying to do, or if any of us are trying to do what we feel like we should be doing, then it's really going to hurt us on a deeper level, because what we do on the outside really affects everything down to our gut health on the inside.
Right. I'm gonna interrupt because there's two things that came to mind. Number one, you said the death of a loved one. That could be a transition. When my dogs died, when Quinlan passed away, we had to put her to sleep, and then 3 months later, Wenzel passed away. I've never experienced those type of emotions before, and it hit me for months. It was so hard to lose those two pets. I had my cats when I was younger passed away, but I was off to college, so I wasn't there when that happened. And what did I do? I reached out to my friends who had similar situations. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I had no idea what you were going through, but I do now. Like, it is helpful to be able to have someone who could relate to what you were going through. The same thing when I broke my knee. I was just trying to connect with other people who've had knee issues, knee surgeries, who understood what I was going through, and then I understood what they were going through. So just having that person to talk to. And then something else you had said about, it's like, for example, you lose the job. It's an opportunity to create something bigger and better in your career, or you go through that horrifying divorce, and that's just an opportunity for you to find the right person. Obviously that person wasn't the one for you, and it's just an opportunity to find someone else who's better for you. And again, generally, I'm going to say you can always turn a negative situation into a positive. It never feels like that in the moment, but over time it can be.
Right. And you guys, these don't have to be giant transitions. Like, we're talking about huge things like losing a loved one, getting fired from a job, switching careers, getting married, but even little teeny tiny transitions. So like the race I just did in St. George, it was the last year of this race. And my friend Ashley and we went together, and she's done this race 10 times and I've done this race 13 times. That's a lot of years. Over half of those years we've gone together. We drive together, we stay together, and then we drive home together. That's spending a lot of time together. And we've also gone out for just a training in St. George. So it's been more than just the races. And we were both really sad that it's the last year of the race, because this is what we do every May.
Mm-hmm.
Every May, the beginning of every May, we start talking about it 6 months before. Like I drove to Vegas a few months ago. When I passed the exit, I took a picture and I'm like, Ashley, 3 more months. And she was like, oh my gosh. So we were talking about how sad it was. And then this morning, our friend from St. George found a video of a little video of the race that the Greater Zion area tourist board put out. And there's when I almost said Wendy and I, Ashley and I were in the video. So I watched it. I started crying. And then I reached out to Ashley because she watched it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally just shed a tear. And she's like, me too. And we were checking in on each other. And we were both like, yeah, I'm really sad right now.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to have someone that we can relate to, like Wendy said, that we can just know that you're not alone, connect with somebody. And it doesn't have to be a big, giant transition or a big thing to have it be impactful. It can be just this little thing like Wendy or that Ashley and I are going to miss racing in St. George.
Mm-hmm.
And to connect together, I think is going to be really, it's helpful for your overall well-being, for stress relief, for anxiety relief, for overwhelm, for all the feelings you get during a transition. Because then we're like, what are we doing next year? We're like, I guess nothing.
There'll be something.
I know.
You'll have
They
to do
will
an
be.
ultra run. Maybe you'll do an ultra run with her.
That sounds awful. That sounds like nothing I want to do. So yeah. So anything else, Wendy, that you can think of just around this area of transitions and just how to help it? A lot of times I feel like there's a lot of things that you can't make easier in general, but maybe you can help yourself navigate through it. So just taking care of yourself, like Wendy said, self-love, self-care, do the things that are important to you. I'm sure some people thought I was heartless. I'm going through divorce and all I'm focusing on is my training. But if I cared what everyone else thought and I gave up my training to just be miserable for a few months, then that wasn't going to help me through this transition.
Yeah, and it's just just a few reminders, because sometimes, again, it's such just a mindset, reframing a mindset shift. And when you don't know, like the shock of anything can happen at any time to create this transition, this setback, knowing you have some tools in your toolbox, that it's, those positive self-talks, doing something that you can control, talking to someone who can relate to you, focusing on you and just kind of blocking out everyone else. Sometimes you just need to have that selfishness. Being selfish isn't always a bad thing. It's probably never, in my mind, it's really not necessarily a bad thing ever, because it's a reframing and it's just a definition that you give yourself. So I think that, we kind of talked about a lot of different strategies people can use, and those are the 3 highlights. Yeah.
And to add, and we've mentioned this on other podcasts before also, but things like journaling, maybe starting or learning about something new, starting a new hobby, taking that trip you've always wanted to take. When I was going through my divorce, I could have moved out of my house and moved right into another place, because I knew I wasn't moving back in to my house that I was married in. But what I chose to do was get in my car and I drove around. I went to Florida for like 3 weeks. I visited Wendy in Georgia for like 2 weeks. We just trained and hung out and
jumped on the trampoline.
We did flips on the trampoline. We did core work on the trampoline. And so I chose to have an experience, go on an adventure. And maybe it was just to be a little distraction, but I think it's okay if you're going through something hard to distract yourself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to dive right into the deep end and feel everything right away. Like, do it in your own time, in your own way. And again, I think that comes back to, like Wendy said, your why. Like I said, being authentic to who you are and what your needs are.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have any listener question? Because I actually remembered to save mine.
No. And you go first. I know I had I just got to think. I just wasn't prepared with listener questions.
That's okay.
We said prepare this week.
No, we don't have to have listener questions. They're just good if we do.
Oh, I do have a listener. I do have one. Okay.
You're like, I do.
This is great. Go ahead.
This came in the day after my race in St. George, and it was somebody who's a Facebook friend of mine, and she said, "Hi Kirsten, solid race yesterday in St. George. I was intending to race, but got COVID 10 days before the race. I'm doing well now, thinking about doing Boulder 70.3. Are you? I have questions about how to navigate vegetarian diet and racing. I am vegetarian, but I do eggs. How do you handle the frequent poops when you race?" And it's funny because last week when I was like, I had a question, but I couldn't remember it. It was somebody like, remember, I was like, I thought about it like last night before I went to bed and then I couldn't remember. It's because one of my athletes reached out to me and he had just done his last long run before the Colfax half marathon this upcoming weekend. And he was like, every time I run, I have to poop. Like, what is this normal? Like, what's going on? And so I was going to mention something about it because I pulled up a bunch of information about it. And then that's what I forgot about. And then this person asked pretty much the same thing. So first of all, it has nothing to do with being vegan or vegetarian. It's a very common thing that when you run, because of the jostling of your system and the pressure down on your bowels, it's very common to feel like you have to poop or to actually have to several times during a run. And it doesn't happen to everyone, but I know it's very common, and it's so common. They have a name for it. It's called something like runner trots. It's called something like that. And that's exactly what it is. And so some of the things, I feel like, I mean, there are some things you can do to help prevent it, but I know people that have tried things and it still doesn't help. So I think it's just everyone's body is different and you have to figure out what works for you. One thing that I do if I have a big race coming up, because I eat a ton of fruits and vegetables, and that definitely makes me have to poop a lot. I stop eating a lot of fruits and vegetables like 3 days before the race. So
Yeah,
I was eating.
low fiber food. So I stop 48 hours. I really don't have any fruits or vegetables 48 hours leading up to a race. And that includes, 5K, 10K or triathlon.
Yeah. So I would say from my experience and Wendy's experience, that's a really good place to start is 48 hours, or if you're finding you need an extra day on the end of that, is just stop eating fruits and vegetables. And so I eat a lot of processed foods the day before the race, or some like I can't even think of like really complex carbs other than maybe sometimes I've had oatmeal, but I'll have something like protein shakes, protein bars, oatmeal, pancakes. I did have a pizza, but nothing on it. It was just like dough and oil and garlic and some mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Like I keep it really simple and hardly have any fiber within a couple days of the race. And then a couple things I read were, make sure you're going to the bathroom right before you run, which, most of us hopefully do. I have friends who use Imodium. I've never tried that because I don't like to mess with my system. And my friends who have tried Imodium, half of them say it works sometimes and it doesn't work all the time. So to me, that's not worth messing with. But I've also heard of professional athletes using stuff like Imodium or Pepto, antidiarrheals, stuff like that to maybe try to solidify things a little bit so that it doesn't feel like you're constantly having to go. And then the other thing I read was just keeping a food journal of like what you're eating on what days and then when it's happening. So you can look back and say, okay, well, the last 48 hours, I've eaten this and this. Let's not do this next time. Let's try this and this and see what works. Because like we always talk about, everyone's body is so different. And some people don't have issues with this at all. But I do for sure. And I know a lot of people that do. So can you think of anything else you would add to that, Wendy?
Well, I know my friend Cindy Dallow, you know her, she's a registered dietitian with her PhD, and she has an article about how magnesium, it's in most sports drinks, can cause GI distress, meaning give you the shits. And so I can't remember the name of her articles, like something like sneaky little thing in a sports drink that could cause you to have diarrhea. So it's making sure, you look at the ingredients of what you're eating, stay away from high fiber foods, which is usually fruits and vegetables, beans, um, leading up to your race. And, like you said, keeping a food log is really critical because that'll help you hopefully diagnose what and how much you're eating. It could just be a volume thing if you're eating too much. If you're doing that carbo loading, I say in quotes, and you just are eating too much, even if it's not high fiber fruits and vegetables, it could just be too much volume of food. And that's giving you GI distress. I've been doing this for so long. My body, I'm just one reason I can do all these long stuff and race so much is I've adapted to what works for me, but I think I really have a strong gut too, that my gut
Right.
can handle a lot of different things. Is really important. So, yeah, I have kind of a question that has to do with fueling as well.
Before you start, because you made me think of one thing I want to add to this, and then we can move on. Because you said the magnesium. One of the other things the article said, and I've experienced, and I know most of you guys have, because a lot of you guys drink your coffee in the morning because it helps you go to the bathroom. And I read an article that said caffeine is something that definitely makes you go to the bathroom. And so if you're drinking a lot of caffeine during your training run or your workout or your race, then that could be a culprit as well. So
As
even
well as
like,
lots of hydration too. Sometimes if I can't go, I have a glass of water and I'm in the bathroom.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of people at the beginning of the race are taking a pre-workout or drinking the electrolytes with the magnesium or drinking some caffeine or taking a gel with the caffeine right before the race. And that's going to trigger that response in your GI system to make it flow down. So that might be another thing you want to avoid for, the first half of the race or during your training runs if you're having issues with having to stop constantly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What is
So
yours?
my question again, was asked in a Facebook group. And so I copied my answer because I thought it was a good answer. They asked, it was an athlete in an Ironman training group, how much electrolyte drink should they be taking in their upcoming 70.3 per hour? And that was it. There was no other context based on the body size. I believe this was a male. So, my big thing on electrolyte drink is everyone's different on how much electrolyte and how much fluid you need. It's going to depend on your sweat rate, and your body size primarily, and how much sodium is in your sweat. And I could say that with confidence because I had my sweat rate tested at the Gatorade Sports Science Institute in 2007, where we did a 2-hour bike ride indoors at 85% humidity to simulate a Kona condition, followed by a 2-hour run. And we had to collect our urine samples the day before, and we were collecting the urine the day of that activity and while we were staying active. And we ate and drank how much we planned to in the Kona Ironman World Championships. And so I found out from that study that I don't have a lot of sweat, or I don't have a lot of sodium in my sweat. I get everything I need from Gatorade. And back then, Gatorade was the official sponsor. And I didn't need to take extra electrolytes. I think so many people just assume they need a certain amount of electrolytes without really knowing. And times that I have tried taking more salt because I thought it would benefit me actually made me nauseous. When I would take that base salt that you put your finger in, you put your finger in the salt and then you lick it, that kind of made me nauseous. I get nauseous if I salt my food a little bit too much. It's the sodium. So you really want to, if you are really concerned about it, you should do some sort of sweat rate testing yourself to figure all this stuff out. Because again, it does depend on how much you weigh, your gender, and that sodium. So I just wanted to stress that you don't need to take electrolytes just because everyone else is. You don't need to take supplements necessarily because someone else is. I tend to, because I have this dialed in, because of the study I was part of in 2007, I usually drink about 20 ounces of the electrolyte drink, whatever's offered on the course, I'm fine with, as well as another 20 ounces of water. So about 40 ounces of fluid during the course of an Ironman, which is easy to do because of the aid stations. And my body and my gut is trained to do that. So it's just important that, again, you keep a log, see how you're feeling. If you come back and you're really covered in white salt when you come back from a training session, that's a good indication that you're a heavy sweater and you do have a lot of sodium in your sweat, and you could probably benefit from taking extra. If you tend to cramp, which I don't, I've never been someone who tends to cramp race day or during training. I don't need to take extra electrolyte. If you're someone that does suffer from cramps, maybe taking extra electrolyte might help you.
Yeah, and it's really easy now. They have tests are readily available now. Back in the olden days, you would have to go to a lab or go to some place specific. Now you can order sweat rate tests. So it's really easy to figure it out on your own now. The other thing that made me think of, so at St. George, it was in the mid 90s for the race day. It was really hot. And I heard so many people race morning. So probably 10 people minimum are like, do you have your extra salt? Did you bring extra salt? It's going to get hot. Do you have your salt? Just like randomly talking about it's going to be hot. It's going to be really hot. So everybody needs extra salt.
Which isn't necessarily true. That was not true for me. And that's why I was successful racing Kona, because I was not a heavy sweater. I did not have a lot of sodium in my sweat, and I could get away with what was offered on the course.
Yeah. So yeah, just like Wendy said, just because everyone else is doing it, you don't need, because I'm the same way. I used to think that too. And I would be like, oh, I'm taking all this salt and I'm taking all this caffeine because everyone's doing that. I took the tabs, like the salt stick tabs that had caffeine. And every race, I was throwing up for like 3 days after the race.
Yeah.
Until I realized that like I didn't need all that. I was doing it because I thought more is better.
Well, and again, I want to jump in and say you tend to need more hydration and more fluid on extremely hot conditions, but you don't want to just drink water either. You don't want to dilute your cells of the electrolytes that are currently in them, because that could lead to what's called hyponatremia, which I believe I suffered with in my first Ironman in 1997. I was focused, this is before I knew anything about nutrition. I was focused on eating 400 calories an hour and drinking because I was supposed to.
And you're drinking just water?
I was drinking mostly water, more water than I was Gatorade. And even though, again, I didn't know at the time, I don't have a lot of sodium in my sweat. I peed 6 times on the bike. I peed like every 2 miles on the run. I washed myself down with wet sponges. I was so puffy at the end, and I could not control my bladder because I was just super, super hydrated. But I think I was falling into that realm of possibly being hyponatremic because I was puffy and I just was diluting the electrolytes out of my cells.
Yeah, I think a lot of people now, since hyponatremia has been, it's deadly. There's people that's way more deadly than getting nauseous because you ate too much salt. So I think it kind of like went the other direction, because back in the day, everyone's like water, 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 water. And then people were getting hyponatremic and it's deadly. It could be deadly. And so people went the other direction and they're like, extra salt, extra electrolytes, extra. So there is a balance. And like Wendy said, everybody is different. So find your own balance.
Yeah.
So what are you most excited about coming up?
It's Memorial Day weekend, and I just registered for the 10K that happens on Monday. I haven't done it.
What's it called?
It's a 10K. It's Memorial Day 10K.
Oh, it's not the peach one. The peach one is 4th of July.
No, the peach one is July 4th. So this is a Memorial Day one. It's 2 miles from my house. So I can jog there as a warm up. I haven't done it since I'm pretty sure I did it in 2022. I think I won it. I won the 10K. I did actually reasonable time too. I think I was really happy with my time. And then in 2023, I broke my knee. So I haven't done it in 3 years. And so I'm excited to do it because my focus right now is on the 10K. It's on the Peachtree 10K that happens July 4th. So even though like I'd rather just go for a trail run and, enjoy my trails, I'm like, no, you have a goal on July 4th. You got to get some 5K and 10K road experiences to kind of see where you're at. So I'm really excited about that. And I just remembered another wellness win because I like to do my activity wellness win. Today I jogged. Today's my Kennesaw Mountain Day. It's a 1.5 miles, 550 feet of gain. I jogged up it and I hammered down
Ooh,
and
nice.
I made a 5K out of it. So I ran my own downhill 5K in 19 minutes and 44 seconds.
And that's on trail too.
No, this was on the road.
Okay.
This was Kennesaw Mountain Road.
Oh,
I knew last night, I'm like, I want to run a fast 5K tomorrow. I'm going to do a net downhill 5K just to say if I can run a net 5K, downhill 5K under 20 minutes, I have more confidence that by September, I might be able to run a flat 5K under 20 minutes. That's another Labor Day. So I have the Memorial Day 10K, I have the July 4th 10K, and then I have the Labor Day 5K that I'm going to run. And that's my goal, is to run under 20 minutes this year. So, yeah, I mean, I'm like, if you want to get faster at road running, you got to road run.
Yeah.
My trail run, I still trail run on like easy recovery days, but that's not my focus right now. It's on the road.
That's awesome.
So that's
Congratulations.
what I'm excited about, the Memorial Day 10K.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. Today, one of the things I did while I was being productive is I finalized our swim team roster for the summer, and we have 122 kids on our team.
Wow.
I know, but I'm really excited because we've always had in the league we're in, most teams have a really strong 9 and 10-year-old, like the 9 and 10 girls are like the huge age group.
Uh-huh.
And we're a newer team. I think this is our 5th year. So we've never had we've never had great 9 and 10-year-olds, and we've only had like a few, but we've had so many 8 and unders because we had a really young team. So now those 8 and unders are coming up, and our 9 and 10 age group right now, we have 28 girls.
Wow.
Just in the
awesome.
9 and 10s.
That's fantastic. That's
I know.
fun.
So I'm really excited for them to crush it. And we start swim team this, we started last week with some, like preseason practices. And then we have preseason. Oh my gosh, my dogs. We have a preseason practices all this week and next week. And then we start our official morning practices after Memorial Day.
Yeah. When I was a kid, our summer league was huge. So it's fun memories to have right now.
I know. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off because there must be somebody at the door because the dogs are going berserk. All right, you guys, thanks for being here.
Make it a great day.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten. If you want to learn more about us or anything we talked about today, check out the links in our show notes. We would love to know what you think of our podcast and what you want more of. So drop us a comment, send us a message, and help us out by leaving us a rating and a review. And don't forget to let us know your wellness win for this week. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day.